Hello, everybody. Yep, we've just got a couple little tangles. Everything's good with the internet connection and all that. So we're just waiting on Keith. He had some stuff he had to finish up, and he will be here in just a couple of minutes. Okay. So in the meantime, we'll just have a little bit of music playing in the background, and we'll be good to go. So hang on just a moment. We'll be here shortly. Thank you. Here's our man of the hour. Let's rock, right?
How are we doing?
You're looking good.
Yeah, apparently not as good as I should, but you know what the heck? I can scare people. But yeah, we're good to go.
All right, and you're on the air.
And welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on June 30th, 2024 at approximately 4:40 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I built myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally use, and the philosophies I talk about are the same philosophies of life that I personally guide my virtually every movement by. Now, with this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue working for me and have literally worked for thousands of others for, with varying degrees of success depending on their own personal efforts. Now, with this in mind, my apologies, guys. Got caught up doing a little bit of sorting around and lost track of time. That said, before we get into discussing we are still working with the various races. Today we're going to work on the more, if you will, on the more positive ones. Now, going right back up to the top here, we have, let's see, first and foremost, Moonhawk, you are actually in with the gold. Way to go. Glad you could join us. I do trust things are going well. And Storm is in the house. Storm, thank you so much. Let's face it, the stream wouldn't run, period, without your assistance. Okay. And then we have Rachel. You are in with the silver. Hopefully things are going well on your end. And Preacher, you are in with bronze. Again, I really wish I could make it this year. I just don't have timing for it. And for that matter, much more importantly, the funding I was hoping was going to come in, I have no clue when it's going to come through. Renee, you are in with honorable mention. Glad you could join us. Trust things are moving nicely. And then we have Philip Blair is also in. Yes, today is the day of the sun. And tomorrow is a wonderful day of the moon. Now, just go down and we have anybody else. And there's LA. LA, how you doing? You know, things are, to say the least, a little on the hectic side, that's for certain. And scroll down. Did I miss anybody? Nathan from the Quantum Show. You are in. Yes, you are in the house. Now, again, we had a wonderful little show last night. And drop in. Nathan comes on every Saturday at 9 p.m. Pacific. Okay, he's got some great topics he works on. Absolutely drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, give him a thumbs up. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of the thing. You know, because it is literally sharing these links and working together that this world is going to turn around. And Joe, how you doing? Oh, there we are. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful, Joe. You know, I see very few people that actually multitask like you do. But hopefully things are going well. And whoa. Yes, I didn't go very far. I was actually looking into some other stuff I've got through my notes. And rest assured, that's proving to be entertaining. And we have Ken Stockland in. How you doing, Ken? I know things have been hectic on your end. Oh, there we go. Now, and that catches us up. Now, here's the thing. Okay, yesterday we looked at some of the more volatile people. Today we're going to look at more of the creative side of people. And again, if you've got questions regarding anything, doesn't even matter if it's on the same topic, drop a message into the chat room and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, now, Storm, I actually sent you the 5 races today. Now, I will tell you, today we're looking at the races, and of course, tomorrow we're going to be looking at this whole issue of the fear side of it and what people are actually pushing. This is really, oh, there we go. Preacher goes down and had patient in hours. Now I'm waiting for oh, there you go. Hopefully your patients cooperate there, Eric. You know, now the neat little part about it, when we look at the different races, there are so many races that the variations are extreme. But we're going to take a look at the creative side and somewhat what shall we say, the less violent side of things goes. I wonder. You know, some days I kind of look at it going, maybe I should take up what the core board do. Okay. And in all fairness, Storm, if you've got your ears on, which I know you do, if you want to pop up a picture of the core board. Now, the core board, you know them as dwarves. And we've talked about how volatile they can be, and how great they are at battle. What you don't know necessarily is they put just as much effort, if not more in some ways, into the fine arts. Okay, into construction, into the architecture, mining, this sort of thing. Their work on stonework is absolutely unheard of. Oh, there you are. Yeah, we're just letting us know. Just got bit by a bull ant. Now, I believe. Now, correct me if I'm wrong there. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Woo. But the bull ant is, obviously they're a violent one. That is not the same as the army ant. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Well, here's the thing, Woo, where you're talking about the trim mustache. Now you'll notice that when you look at that picture, both the male and female have beards. Okay. The neat little part about it, the neat little part about it with them is they turn around and like they put a lot of pride in their appearance. Now, yes, they're a little rough and tumble, but just because you're wearing leather doesn't mean you can't look good. So they spend a lot of time. One of the reasons they work with leather is because it wears really well. Let's face it, they're they're crawling around on concrete, on stone. They're working stone dust into their body all the time. This is one of the reasons why it gets so difficult to tell which one's which, whether it's male or female. Now, obviously, obviously, when you take a look at the Corboar, okay, if you look at them from either the front or the side, the odds are you're going to be able to tell whether you're looking at male or female. But hate to tell you this, but getting a headshot does not always work well, as in taking a picture of their head. Because with them both having full beard and mustache, they don't go with this idea of, oh, let's trim it and keep it clean, keep it tidy. They really don't. Because what they do is the longer the hair is, the more likely they are to decorate it with bones. And yes, they will hollow out different bones, carve it different ways, and set it up in their beard. Bones, gems, different metal shards, anything that looks creative. And from their standpoint, it really boils down to how do you deal with it? How do you stand out in Corboar society? Well, you stand out by making your outfit and making your beard, making your mustache look absolutely spot on. Okay, yes, you do end up with some that end up. Now, try that thought again. Corboar, some will go bald, absolutely. But I'll tell you, that's nothing in their eyes. Lose your hair, go ahead. Just don't lose the beard. Many of these guys, as you can tell in the one in the picture there, the one male, his beard comes down to his down to his clavicle or to his clavicle. Oh, there we go. And Eric is, preacher just going, whoa, you've fallen under the curse of the ancient Greek god, Typonius. And we could go down that road, but the thing we have to remember where it comes to the Corboar, okay, Corboar have a wonderful little thing. If you're going out in public, be dressed to the nines. If you're going to war, make certain your leather is buffed properly. If you're in metal, that gets polished to a shine. One of the claims these guys have, okay, when they're walking out in public, they desire to be the center of attention right from the get-go. Okay, now humans go, oh, look at me, I'm special. Corboar have a tendency of dressing to the point that they will glow in the sun. usually because of whatever they're doing. They polish it to a fine art, okay, add gems, add sparkles wherever they can. But you got to remember, okay, whatever you do, never assume that because a Korbor is dressed in finery, do not make the mistake of assuming this means he's a pushover. Okay, like I said, they have their forehead on either the male or the female. Okay, there are some of them that will literally, because they work in fine art. Now, humans figured out how to tattoo. Korbor don't tattoo. Okay, they may draw, they may tattoo to a degree, but you got to remember they are also very proud of their stamina, of their pain threshold, which means quite often they will literally scar themselves. In human society, you go out and you get a tattoo and they use ink and pen. In Korbor, okay, they give you another drink like that's an abnormality, and they will literally carve your tattoo so it comes up as a fine art carving job. Okay. Shane, how you doing? Glad you could join us. So, we are talking about people, when you think about the pain threshold. Now, I've never personally had a tattoo. I've never had one put on me. I've got no interest in it. Korbor, they use carving knives, okay, to literally cut the skin and let it heal. Yeah, that's the thing there, preacher. It's funny when you start taking a look at people that say, oh, it's wildly inappropriate. I think you would be hard pressed to find a Korbor that actually speaks in what they consider an inappropriate fashion. Many of them will literally make a human sailor blush. Okay, because they have no boundary on what they're allowed to say. The whole trick is there's two things you never do with a Korbor. Number one, never even joke about cutting their beard. Okay, and you certainly do not assume that because they're sitting next to a bearded person that they are sitting next to a guy. Male and female Korbor are almost indistinguishable. And by the way, this whole idea of, let's take a bit of an outdated viewpoint and go, women should be dressed in the fineries. Well, here's the thing. Female Korbor dress the same way the male do. They are just as involved in artisan work as in mining, in stone cutting and stone carving. Okay, these guys work just as heavily. Some of the male Korbor are actually better at things like leather work than what the females are. But they look at it as, okay, if you're an artist, you should be wearing your art, whether it is carved, etched, formed, drawn, doesn't matter. These guys make absolute certain that they are perfect on their work. Now, you got to remember, here we're dealing with a race of people that are around the 4.5 foot mark. Okay, sometimes you'll get one that makes it to be 5 feet. But at 5 feet tall, you're looking at a Korbor that is considered a giant amongst the Korbor. Now, what you look at is you're only looking at a 4.5 foot top of the head. Okay, but the neat part about it is that when you look at that, their ceilings are 30, 40 feet in the air. And there is a viable reason for that. First and foremost, down on the bottom level, you've got your mushroom crops, mushroom and various other underground vegetation, tubers, that sort of thing, that they grow. Now, these guys are omnivorous. They will eat meat, absolutely. But they are also, their big claim to fame is they focus on the artwork. Okay. I would love to be able to draw some of what these guys have done. Okay. But on the ground floor, okay, and you got to remember, they start with a hole in the ground and then they start carving it out. Okay. The ground, right at the ground level, they will immediately make sure that they've got access to their mushroom and various other things. By the way, one of the first rooms they get sorted around, okay, is they get sorted around the greenery, okay, but all that really boils down to is a tiered greenhouse, okay. Main floor, right at the ground level, you've got your mushrooms, okay. Then you go up a little bit and you get some of your tubers, but they grow it in such a way that, unlike with humans, where you look at it and you go, okay, when a plant gets to so tall above, that's where you're looking for. The core bore, and we'll just take a look at carrots, carrots and potatoes, just for simplicity's sake. They plant them, and when the plant is has grown large enough to poke out the bottom of the planter, that's when they pick it. Okay. Now, 99% of their food, they literally ferment. Okay. Because for them, that's just the be all and end all. So you've got your tubers and what have you, the next level up. Then you start going up the wall and you get your climbing vines. Okay. All the way to the top. Now, here's the thing. With the way they work and they build an entire ecosystem with running water. Okay. So it goes up. Literally, fountain hits the roof. In many cases, your water geyser hits the roof and then just continually waters everything. But you got to remember, they're not worried about whether everything is solid, because they ferment 90% of it anyway. Okay, but you got to take a look at the detail of what they're doing. They make absolute certain that when they're carving something, it looks as though, like when they're making a statue, people take a look at Michelangelo and his work, and they go, that's beautiful work. Most do. And then we get some geniuses going, oh, we're going to destroy it. I never got that. But the core bore, they start looking at the level of Michelangelo, going, it has to look like a real person. If we're carving a form of a real person, you've got to be able to mistake that person for a living. You've got to be able to mistake that statue for a living person. Now, something just dawned on me, and these are the only reason I'm bringing these guys up, is not what are they now? Let's go right back up here. I forgot to pop these ones in there. And these are very much an integral part of core bore society. Where are we? Whoop. There we are. These guys. Now I'm just gonna pop this in for you there, Storm. Whoop, I got you back in. Where are we? I was not actually thinking of this one, but these guys, there we are. Let's see if I did this right. Yep. Okay. The reason I brought these guys up. Okay. These are the Gorgon. Okay. Now, the reason I bring them up is because of the fact that when you're looking at these ones we're about to bring up, Korbor are known to carve these guys. Okay. But the Gorgon we will do our best to get to in a little more detail. They are not artisans. This is why I didn't bother with it. Okay. But the Korbor make these guys as realistic as they can get, as frightening as they can get. Because what happens is these statues, okay, are made to look and subsequently behave in a functional fashion if necessary. Okay, so they like you'll find they now the Gorgon are literally what you would call gargoyles. Okay, they're a fascinating race because they literally are built by individuals. Now, Korbor are quite often the ones that do it. Okay, some humans carve well enough to make it worth the Gorgon while. Okay, but that's a very complicated setup there. Okay, so much as the Gorgon, much as the Korbor are extremely creative. Okay, don't kid yourself. They've got three things that they hold extremely dear. When we talk about them liking gold, it's not because it's gold. It's because when you polish it, it is shiny. It is reflective. Armor should be, any armor, any jewelry, according to them, should be reflective enough that you can actually see yourself in whatever it is. And there we have the Gorgon. Okay. Now they are built, like I said, the Gorgon themselves are not a creative race. They are there as defenders of the area they're in. It's that simple. Okay. Now, fortunately, the Korbor bring them in to protect their home from evil, from assault, from violence. Okay. The neat part is the Gorgon, when the conflict starts, the Gorgon will become active. The Korbor are still going to try and get to the front of the battlefield. But three things that they value above everything else. Artistry. Okay. They like the art to be absolutely pristine, not a cut out of line. Okay. If they're building a brick house, for instance, if they're building it out in the field, those bricks will slide in with just a micro inch. In other words, they fit in as snug as you can get. You'd be really hard pressed in many cases to even run a razor blade between the bricks. Okay, this is how strongly they pay attention to detail. So you've got your artwork, you've got the building, and of course, the bigger the building, go big or go home. What the Korbor lack in stature, they make up for vision. They make up for in vision. Okay, so they will build. So number one, the artistry is the big thing. When you're looking at shiny, they like their gold, they like their silver. They have found ways of combining things. Well, now that is just scary there, Eric. Hey, preacher. And preacher just goes, he goes, poor doctor just called down asking how to order blood for his patient. Now, I don't know if that right off the bat would concern me, right? But then he turns around and he goes, so I told him, we don't have the same system. So I said, call down the ER or the ICU. They're my best customers. No doubt. If you're working blood work, those guys need help. Now, I gave up giving blood. Well, more to the point, I was told I can't. I was also told my blood is perfectly fine. Problem is, I'm still listed as epileptic. And as the nurse had told me I couldn't donate blood without going to a hospital, as she told me, it's not that your blood's bad. It's that we have enough trouble getting people in here to donate blood. Picture the problem if we take a pint of blood out and it triggers a seizure. In spite of the fact that you haven't had a seizure in 40 years, picture how much trouble we're going to have getting anybody to come in and donate blood. So we are looking at when we look at the Corridor, okay, they like their shiny stuff. They absolutely like their alcohol, okay. And in case you couldn't tell, when you take a look at the way they meet each other, okay, they literally, humans shake hands, these guys rear the head back and smash their foreheads together. Okay, that's their way of saying hello, or nice to meet you. So I mean, you really want to make a dwarf happy, or more to the point, you want to make a Corridor confused. Put a gold under the beer, okay, and tell him you can only have, you've got two hands, you got a bag of gold there, you got a mug of jumbo, and there's a fight going on in the corner. You can only have two. Okay, this is going to cause some consternation. Make them happy. You take start the fight in the corner, pour a mug of jumbo, and drop a gold coin in the bottom. Right? You gotta finish the fight before you can have the jumbo, and you can't have the gold till you finish the jumbo. These guys are going to be in seventh heaven. Now, one last thing I'm going to point out: when you deal with the Corridor and their legal system, okay, their whole punishment is they lock you in a cage with no jumbo, with no fermented food. Okay, and depending on what you did will determine how long you're stuck in that cage. Punishment for anybody else, put them in the same cage. Okay, so I mean, we are talking about a race that is, shall we say, intriguing in some ways. Now, that is the Corridor, and we will come back to them if we end up there. Again, if you've got questions, do put them in the chat room. Ask away, even if it's not in the same field. Okay. Now, I've got a number of races that we are looking at today. Okay. So, the next one we're going to look at is another one quite often associated with combat, with the violent side of things. And that is the elephant race. Okay. Now, just like humans, there are multiple different races of elephant. In all fairness, there are different races of Corridor. And in races of the world, the second printing, we do have the added races of the Corridor and the elephant listed in the book as well. I'm just looking at the overall picture for the moment. Now, the elephant tend to go with natural colors. They tend to go with natural materials, i.e. leather. They go with wood armor. Quite often they will go with wood clothing or flower clothing, whatever, again, For them, it's about the camouflage. Okay. And the more natural their clothing looks, the better off they are. Now, what you're seeing in this picture here with the elephant, this is the high society. Okay. Standard run of the mill. And even these guys will get dressed in camouflage if they're ever leaving their home. They go with stuff that will blend them right in, so they can stand in amongst a bush, up against a tree, and they will vanish. Okay, it's not that they are skittish; it's that they prefer to not disrupt the natural flow. Okay, many of them know how to mimic animal as in bird and mammal calls. This is just another language to them. Okay, but where you'll see the real strength of their artwork is in their houses, which are built straight into the treetops. Okay, and they will blend them in so that they virtually vanish. Now, you can picture the fun we're going in that people would have. Wara, which we're not dealing with here, I do have them, but the Wara work with natural nesting as well. And it's sometimes difficult. Didn't like that. It's sometimes difficult to tell whether you're looking at a elephant or at a Wara nest. Now, the thing is, elephant they're an ancient race. By the way, so are the Korbor. They evolved on Earth. And yes, they are still here. Now, the thing is, when the elephant were first put together, they were made for spirits to inhabit. And the original elephant, there's still a few of them around, okay, that were born or created, or however you want to put it, back when Earth itself was first configured. Okay, so there are some elephant, not many, that are literally billions of years old. They just plain don't die of natural causes. Unless you take the Camby's idea. Because naturally you're going to die if a knife enters your back. It's natural you'll die. Okay. Where the unnatural thing is when you stick a knife in somebody and they pull out, look at the knife and go, why would you do that to me? And there are elephants that heal like that. Okay. But what they do is they go after the finer work. Now, Korbor, when you're looking at the jewelry, it's usually a little on the thicker side. It's not really fine artwork. That's the elephant way. Okay. And then you've got the various different types. But when you look at the elephant, we have, you've got your standard elephant, which are the ones that grow up in the forest. Okay. Then you've got the Camby, which grew up underground. They grew up in the dark. You've got elephant that have adapted to the far north. You've got elephant that have adapted to desert, to desert living. Intriguingly enough, the far north is a frozen desert. Okay, but the elephant use the same idea when they're looking at building a home in the frozen waste as in the dry sands. Okay, and again, they have their own way of communicating. Much of their communication, mind you, is literally done. Sorry about that. Live air. Much of the elephant communication is done via animal calls or mimicking the sound of the weather. Okay, so this is again one of those neat little things about them really staying locked in a hidden configuration, so you can't find them. Because unfortunately, humans still, if you're not exactly like them, humans have a tendency on the whole of fearing other people. Alpha just learned that this is quite often fatal. The other thing you got to remember with the elephant is they know how to work true magic. Okay. One of the ways that, unlike with the core will polish things. Okay. They will polish a staggering amount to get something to glow or to reflect light. The elephant, literally, they work with spell casting. And one of the things they do is they literally will adjust the molecular vibratory rate of a piece of jewelry so it has a natural inborn glow. And yes, I know that sounds a little weird. Okay, they have, for long range, in the dark, elephant have a tendency of working with not only sound, but with light. Okay, that's done by altering the vibratory rate of things. But again, if you think about it, like the human Native Americans used to do. Okay, they communicate with smoke. The elephant communicate with pulsating light. Okay, and that's where it gets to be really interesting, because they figured out, because they work with light communication, the Strazosians, who are 7.5 to 8.5 foot reptilian, work with light. They work with pigmentation under the throat. Okay, Eubion and Verosic are light-based individuals. Okay, that again work with pulsating light. Needless to say, they've got a language that is very compatible with elephant. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. And again, this is information that we are putting into the second edition. We got caught up with gaming today, but we are already through the lead-in, through the first part of Final Edit for Race of the World, the second edition. Now, that said, if you go to the top of this stream, you'll find a link to buy me a coffee. Through that link, you can buy any of the books I have written. And yes, as was pointed out yesterday, we're working on a couple of spare ones. Okay, needless to say, things are intriguingly busy. Okay, but that's what we've got where are we? Oh, when we are looking at the elephant, okay, the elephant race works on literally the fine art, like the top of the tail, of tailor cut. Okay, they work with natural material. And don't kid yourself. I mean, I look at it myself and I'm like, okay, why would you wear wood? Like, wood seems like it would be rather hard to wear. The neat part about it is it's really not. They make certain it's absolutely polished smooth. Okay, if you take wood and you polish it properly, it can be made as smooth as bone. So you don't have the slivers and what have you. Okay, now the other thing you gotta remember with the elephant, they are taught, because of the fact that they are very much in the way of balancing nature itself. They will protect the area quite readily. And the children are taught. Yeah, that came out well. The children are learned. I think that's poor English. But the children are taught how to treat wood, how to treat plants, where they can literally take the bark of a tree, take the bark of an oak, and turn it into a proper food. Okay, some of you are vegetarian. No problem. You'd love the elephant diet. Okay, they have things that look like meat, but that's because of the fact it holds a better form. And you take, I kid you not, this sounds really bad, but they will take the thin white bark off an alder tree, they will work it until it's absolutely soft. Then they turn around and take some of the wood from it, and they pound it down to totally smooth. Mix in a little bit of mushroom, natural mushroom, maybe some moss. Put it all together, and it looks like a hamburger. It does not taste like a hamburger. It does not taste like beef. They don't go, oh, we're going to make this so it looks more appealing. They go, it's made of wood, it's made of fiber, it's made of grass. Okay, this is why it's good. But I will tell you, I know this from personal experience. On the island, we had something called a honeysuckle. I don't know if you guys have it down there or anywhere else in the world for that matter. But on Vancouver Island, we used to pick honeysuckle off the trees, and we'd eat it directly. Okay, same thing with saltgrass. Now, the elephant have figured out how to mix all this together far better than any human herbalist I've ever run into. But again, even when they are talking about making food, okay, you know how humans look at it and go, let's make something look kind of cute so kids are drawn to it. The elephant don't do it so kids are drawn to it. The elephant do it because they're looking at it going, okay, I want this meal to look like a royal meal. So we're going to make a cake, then we're going to make this meal that looks like the crown jewels. Okay, now don't kid yourself. When you look at the carnivore or humans for that matter, they go, let's get crystals, let's get stones. The elephant they work with nuts and seeds. Okay, nuts, seeds, flowers, this sort of thing. But to them, that's the crown jewel. Okay, ironically, if you take a look if we look at Christianity for half a second and you look at the crown of thorns, the elephant make crowns out of thorns. But what they do is they take the thorn off the side that's going to sit against the skin. They clip them off, and then they polish the rough edges. Okay, so it is as smooth as worked silver. Okay, and of course, because of the fact they also know how to dry the stuff properly, they can dry it to the point that not only is it solid, okay, but it is not brittle. Okay, and of course, when you're looking at their way of dealing with the plant stuff, okay, they dye it using natural dyes. Okay, as in they work with the plants. Nothing in the plant world is ignored. They do eat meat, by the way. Okay, but from their standpoint, they never trap. Okay, because trapping literally causes panic in the animal. The idea is simple. Take it out quick, take it out fast. By the way, in battle, they're the same way. They don't bother shooting to wound. Okay, if they're going to fire an arrow, and by the other thing is, they know how to make their bows. The thing is, they build their bows to be able to build bridges. Okay, so you take a standard length human bow, okay, and let's say that that human composite bow can fire 100 yards. Okay, an elephant bow, because of the way they make it, dry it, treat it, stretch it, you name it, okay, they can fire a single elephant bow with a light cable attached. Okay, easily 300 yards. Okay, with pinpoint accuracy. They do that because that's how they build the bridges from one tree to another or across a ravine. Okay, it's also the way they use and what they use to bring down large animals if they're striving to get and to have them work. Now the Kami, which are the dark elephant, okay, they use this same technique. Oh, not a problem, preacher. We saw you in here earlier, but and we did. I don't know how long you've been locked up, but yeah, we're still live and we'll be here for about another hour. Okay, so the elephant, when you're looking at their bows, the bows are designed to fire an extreme distance. They are, where it comes to hanging a bridge, okay, they will literally. Now, here's the neat part with a bridge. They fire it across with a thin line. Then they yank a vine across. Okay, but an elephant bridge is one rope. Okay, and it's usually a rope that's only about the size of a silver dollar. Okay, and they will fire it across the ravine. But to go across that, they run across the top of it. They do not do this thing about making massive bridges. So if you're looking up in the woods, if you're in the deep forest, and you look up and you see vines going across, if the vine's going straight across, you're likely looking at elephant construction. Okay, even in today's world, you'll find them. Okay, now, I could go further. We've got more information, but like I said, we are in limited time here. Now, who is this? Now, we're going to go to this neat little race, the Mobians. Now, 50,000 years ago, Mobians were on Earth. They were humans had arisen, had evolved to the level of what they've got, to the level of Mobians. Mobians had the ability to literally, at the time they were called Lemurians. They had the ability to physically manifest whatever they required, be it food, be it clothing, be it a weapon, be it just artwork. Okay, they got it down to a fine art, but they work with literal physical manifestation. As in, get a thought in your head, visualize it as clearly as possible, and then make it into reality. Solidify the molecular image into a physical form. Okay, if you will, solid holographs. But the Mobians, the Lemurians, they got to the point that they went, okay, we've got this all down to a fine art. Now, we require, some of them went, I really desired to get back to the physical side. They gave up. Well, they had forgotten about all the fine art. And one day, somebody came up with the idea of, hey, let's start rebuilding the material. Let's start working with artwork. Not because it was practical. They had the practical side of things down fine. So the Lemurians turned around and started working with doing things like, let's stack stones just to make a configuration. And then they worked from there. Now, you got to remember, Mobians, because they were Lemurians originally, and we'll jump ahead to Mobian in a minute, but the Lemurians, which are now the Mobians, some of them went, no, we don't want all of this interaction. I'm still working on who wants to lay claim to that. Preacher's going, did the Mobians build the pyramids? And I think what has happened because of the intricacy. Okay, number one, I don't know what the scientists are saying, what the archaeologists are saying. Okay, I really don't. But I can tell you this: the people that built the pyramids it was a combination, the physical building of them was a combination of human, and if you ask me, because I haven't gotten anybody to actually lay claim to it, I would lay odds that the Corvor were the ones that cut them. Humans, on the other hand, were the ones that pushed them. Okay, and of course the Ennead were the gods that these were made because of. And you can bet your bottom dollar they helped with making sure everything got to where it needed to. So we are talking about a major combined effort. Okay, and something I do have to deal with, and I'll deal with that tomorrow. Okay, and that is, there is some information about the pyramids. As a matter of fact, I think I better make a note of that. Find my pen here. That'll work. That hurt a lot. Tomorrow, yes, I'm going to be looking at the fear mongering and that sort of thing. But tomorrow we're going to take a look in detail also at something else about the pyramids. Okay, but the pyramid building, let's start with the obvious. Sphinx came first, pyramid came second. Okay, but it was a combined effort of human, slave, and volunteer. And slave, volunteer, and paid worker. Corvor and the Ennead. Okay, but it was a real intricate job. Now, when you look at the Mobians, Lemurians got everything up and running smoothly. About 50,000 years ago, they decided to colonize Mobius, which, by the way, is on the other side of the sun in the exact same orbit as Earth. Now, the silly part here is I know that human scientists know of Mobius because it was poking around on the internet that I stumbled across an entire array of planets that the government has not told anybody about. Mobius is nobody on Earth will ever see it from Earth because it is literally, if you take a look at this the silver button here, okay, that's the handle that's literally a rivet. Directly on the other side, you'd have, so here we have Earth, for instance, go straight around directly, and we have Mobius. You'll never see one from the other. But the Lemurians got over there and turned to the physical art in a primitive fashion, where it came to making art via thought. Take the most intricate picture you can think of, and these guys literally thought about it and made incredible tapestries just by putting the detail with their mind into the picture or into the building. Okay, the one reason that I will tell you the pyramids themselves were not oh, there we go. Preacher's just adding a little bit of data for us that I had no idea of. Like I said, I've never looked into it. Apparently, the Sphinx was originally a huge lion. Okay, and Khufu, who was Egyptian, if I recall correctly, had his head carved onto it, which is why the head's out of scale. Makes sense when you think about the practicality. But bearing in mind that it was a massive lion, it does lend down the road to the interaction of the Corvor race. Okay, it also brings into understanding the idea that the elephant may well have had an input into it as well. Okay, but all of that put together, okay, the Lemurians went and colonized Mobius. Now, Mobius, in an atmospheric standpoint, is virtually identical to Earth. So, Mobians are one of these races They can walk amongst you. You'd never know it. Okay. But they focused on Earth. Okay. They had perfected mental imagery. Okay. So they would make beautiful tapestries using energy. Now, with that in mind, okay, these guys know exactly how energy interacts. Okay. But what happened when they colonized Mobius 50,000 years ago? About 10,000 years later, they had a problem. Somebody in the Lemurian Empire turned around, and we never did know if it was a child, an adult, a male, a female. We didn't have a clue. Somebody came up with the idea that, hey, what would happen if we all stopped our heart at the same time? Not well thought out. 10 billion people, half of them died like that. Okay. And then when you consider that all of their buildings were built on mental cohesion, when the originator of a thought line died, so did that whole image. Now, if you take a 200-floor building and you knock out the middle 50 floors, not only do the people that died end up dying, but the people that were in the building died due to impact or fall. Okay. Over on Mobius, you have an interaction where everything is laid out, landscaping, buildings, all of it is built very much on an interactive level, on a literally, and when they're building, for instance, you build bridges over in Mobius. They don't build bridges using nails, rivets and what have you. They cut the wood to fit perfectly. Okay. It was a long time coming, but the thing with their artwork was this. When they first went back to physical art, they would start doing their best with it, and it was clunky. Let's face it. When you take a look at apes in today's world, some of them will stack rocks. Okay, that is a basic form of art. So they would stack rocks, or they would stack trees, or they'd lean them together. Okay, this is how it starts. Over in Mobius now, they not only do they build the physical, but they will color it still using mental cohesion. The advantage is if the building originator dies, the building doesn't fall apart anymore. Joe, the answer is yes. I will have to look into it. We got a couple other things we got to get to, but I will absolutely deal with that. I cannot give you a week right now, but I am writing it down. Hence why I've got this funny little thing. And yes, as somebody suggested, I am going to be doing smaller booklets like these ones. Okay. Like these. That will handle things like the orbs. Okay, like the various different orbs, the various different races that have multiples. Like, for instance, when we take a look at the Zeta Reticulans. Okay, and I'm going to put little booklets together. Again, they're just going to be little ones. Okay, it keeps it into a financially functional fashion. Boy, see, that's 3 times fast. Okay, now, I don't know if you actually have a copy of Race of the Worlds there, Joe, but I can tell you right off the bat, okay, that are actually either look like orbs or run ships that look like orbs. Okay, we have Zertix, we have the Vorosic. We have Now, which one is it? I keep wanting to say Queensbar, and that's wrong. Why do I always pull a blank on their name? Race. Going back into this, it's amazing. I keep losing names here. There we go. The Kinlar are another race that work with orbs. Now, the Kinlar themselves are not orbs, by the way. Kinlar, and then you've got the Zotar, and there are a number of others. Okay, but yes, I will absolutely do one like this. I think what we'll do is I'll pick a week down the road, okay, where I will target these multi-level races and just simply run a week on that. It does seem to be that there's a lot of information out there that has been overlooked. Okay, now I cannot give you a definitive time. I'm going to be working on that this weekend and get an idea in place. Now, before I get lost here altogether, we are going to take a look at another creative race. And you'll love this one, because this one's all about the bells and whistles. But we are talking about the Orions. Okay, now, here's the thing. If you take a look, I've mentioned there are some movies, some shows, or some series that got it right. The Orions are an interesting race. Okay. And they have a light green tinge to their skin. It is not striking green. We are not talking about forest green or lime green, or for that matter, phosphorescent. But they do have a green tinge to their skin. The reason for it is because much as they are ascension, much as they are mobile, I'll put it this way. The Orions literally evolved. I got to look into my notes. But they have a certain amount of, and you'll love this one, there is a certain amount of literal chlorophyll in their skin. This is what brings about the green tinge. Okay. Now, I'm not certain why there is also, I should mark that, there is also some of them that have a yellow tinge to their skin. Now, I don't know what the plant is that causes what the element is that causes the yellow tinge. But needless to say, with their skin being loaded with a modified form of chlorophyll, these guys are very in tune with fashion, with dance. They are very, very aware of the sounds. One of the reasons you'll find that they wear jewelry at all is not because of its look. It's because of the sound it makes as they move. Okay, now the one thing that when the Orions first started coming down here, okay, they are the ones that taught people and that taught humans literally how to make music with their clothing. Okay, they didn't go into all the great big instruments and what have you. That comes from another area, not the least of which is humans figured out themselves. But the Orions, they go to great extents to make sure whenever they walk, wherever they move, they're making music. Okay, even their method of walking elicits that kind of noise. Okay, this is why if you're watching an Orion walk, okay, and the male Orions have a tendency of being a little bit more, how do I put this? Their primary clothing is more like bangles. Oh, there we are. Preacher's going in terrestrial plants. the yellow is brought about by carotenoids. Okay. Oh, okay. I appreciate that. Like I said, I am a lousy researcher. This is all stuff that I literally, this is stuff I've literally learned by talking. Okay, or by meeting them. I'll tell you, the first time I saw a yellow Orion, I'm looking at it going, okay, on Earth, that's called severe jaundice. But they're perfectly fine that way. But men have a tendency, their primary jewelry is worn on their arms and legs. With the female Orions, their primary jewelry is worn on their hips and their torsos. Okay, now both of them have a tendency of wearing very elaborate headdresses. Okay, and again, so that when they move, it creates an echo. It creates this neat little sound, very much like an electrolyte orchestra used to do. If you think about it, okay, when they're wearing their medals and their gems and what have you, they go after the crystalline ones that change reflection as they move. Okay, so these guys go that way. This is also why, when you're looking at their pastime, the answer there, preacher, is yes, they do. Okay, they very much. Now, let's be clear. They do not grow vegetables on them, although there are some races that do. They simply, much like humans, and I know this one's going to throw a loop, humans generate vitamin D by photo interaction, kind of like photosynthesis. The Orions, literally the chlorophyll, will supplement their food intake. Okay. And then, the thing is, before you jump on that, or before anybody does, Orions are not cannibalistic. Okay. They rely on fruits and vegetables. Although some seafood they will eat. Problem is they don't have a lot of it. Okay. So these guys, when you're looking at the Orions, they go out of their way. So when they're walking, they will make certain their limbs move. They may, if they're going to talk to you, they may literally bring their hands together just to make a noise. Okay, just to make the sound. Now, some of their communication is done via echolocation. Okay, by making this and by walking. They can have a full conversation by just walking. Okay. You take a look at, if you've ever sat around a room full of deaf people and you watch the way their hands move, okay, they say a staggering amount without opening their mouths. Okay. But when you're looking at the Orions, you get a room full of people dancing. You can bet not only are they dancing, they are swinging business deals. They are setting up future dates to get together. Okay. This is a phenomenal way of creative communication. Okay. But if you don't have the right ear for it, you're not going to figure it out. Okay. Many people, when they listen to the Orion conversation, won't understand half of what's being said, because half of what's being said isn't said. Okay. Now, we're looking now. That's what do we have here? Now, when you look at them, okay, they are very much into the music side. And this is why I went to these different people. You've got your Korbor that deal with stonework. You've got your Elfid, which deal with plant work. You've got the Mobians that deal with sound. Okay, or deal with light rather. And you've got your Orions that deal with sound. Okay, now the other side of it is the other race that we're going to look at here is the Venusians. Okay. Now, the Venusians themselves, they deal with the fine arts. Okay. Now, that means their clothing says everything. It's got to be of the finest quality. They deal a lot with silks and that sort of thing, but that's because they look at the appearance of it. Okay. Very vibrant in coloring. And, here's the thing. The Venusians are not a combat race at all. Yeah, preacher, you undoubtedly have heard, I don't know if you have. Have you ever heard the Aurora Borealis? Okay. I mean, many people have seen it, and there have been recordings of it. But I will tell you, the recordings of the Aurora Borealis pale in comparison to the real thing. But if you've ever heard the Aurora Borealis, the Orion Opera are an absolutely mind-blowing experience. Okay, because they will do it in such a way that without being hard on you, human opera, I find really, really difficult to listen to. Yeah, I was amazed. When I was a child, I was living on the island, on Vancouver Island, off the coast of BC. And I was amazed. I got the pleasure of hearing the Aurora Borealis. It is a sound I have never forgotten. And no, I cannot replicate it. I will tell you that what they show you on YouTube and what have you, those recordings are pale by comparison. Now, the Orions, their operas are absolutely mind-blowing to listen to, but they don't hurt the eardrums. Now, when we look at the Venusians, they look at the flowing clothing. Okay, these are the belles of the ball. These are the people that they look and they try and emulate the way the elements move in their clothing. LA goes, I prefer not to be screamed at. Opera is unnerving to me. So I'm guessing you're not overly impressed with Yoko Ono. I mean, I am not a music critic. I just know what I like and what I don't. But, then there's another type of music I cannot listen to. There's a type of music called death metal. Okay. Now, death metal, my brother was too. Death metal literally takes on a literal meaning for me. I walked across in front of a speaker one day when a death metal band was playing. My heart stopped cold. Okay. I don't like death metal. Now, my brother, I grew up with him listening to all of the the great artists like Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, Chopin. Yep. See, I can't tell one from the other. Okay, I know when I like something, but I couldn't tell you which artist did what. With the Venusians, okay, they take a look at their clothing and have it literally emulate the elements. Okay, it flows. The clothing flows with the wind at the slightest breeze. Okay, they dye their clothing the color of nature. These guys are just a staggering group of people. The thing with the Venusians is they've got no concept of war, none at all. So what they did was when they first connected with when they first contacted the Martokians. There we go. When they first connected with the Martokians have no sense of art at all. Their idea of art is being able to hit a target with a bullet and hit that bullet with another bullet. That's their idea of art. So the Martokians went and swung a complete what's it called? Complete treaty. They've got this wonderful agreement with the Venusians. Venusians provide them with the artwork and with the art training, and the Martokians, when necessary, provide security. Now, the neat part there is there are very few Venusians that take to any sort of war. Okay, and the ones that do take, the few that do, usually find themselves leaving the planet to work with the consortium. Okay, or various other races. Now, the nice part with the Venusians is they are very, it's not just their clothing. They speak in a way that flows like the elements. Okay, and it's a wonderful thing to listen to them. You want to see a staggering array. Take a look. You take a look at a concert, a demonstration, if you will, that combines all of the above. Okay, the way that these people work together to create works of art is mind blowing. Okay, would that I could even get anywhere near what they do, but not this lifetime, I don't think. You know, you don't want to see my artwork; it's not great. But these are some of the less abrasive people. Yes, I use the word less abrasive when dealing with the Korbor. Understand the Korbor are a lot of things, but the thing that most people overlook is that they are very creative. Okay, a little stuck in their way, but they are a very creative race. Now, let me see here. I just gotta take a look. Because we're at the I think we're at 30 minutes at this point. Or close to it. And I'm just thinking we got a request here. I just want to take a look at a couple of things. Joe asked about the orbs. Now, with that, we will be doing a much more detailed run on them. Let me just take a look here. Just scanning down. Oh yeah, that's the other race. I mentioned a whole bunch of ones that either they are orbs themselves or they run in ships that are round. The Tolians also run a spherical ship. Okay, now some genius out there came up with the comment that the Death Star was in the area. It's an orb. It absolutely is, or more to the point, it's a spherical ship. The thing is, they only come in. They are a consortium battleship. They are designed for one reason. Okay, and art is not that reason. But I will tell you, the geodesic domes that humans build are a phenomenal piece of workmanship. And this is something that humans developed. Humans don't take all of their work from what they see. Okay, and everything that is beautiful on Earth is not brought about by other races. Okay, you take a look at anything that is a sphere. And by the way, there's a couple that have been brought to light that people have talked about. The Dyson sphere, humans have written out about it. I don't know. I forget who it was. Okay, somebody out there I know knows who wrote about the Dyson sphere first. The thing is, in human terms, it's a great story. Okay, but it is not a physical reality for humans at this point. Down the road, it may well be. Okay, but the Dyson sphere, which basically boils down to a globe built around the sun. Oddly enough, humans can't do that yet, but That is exactly how Caborans are put together. They take a chunk of the sun, okay, just a little piece of it. The creators of them take a little piece of the sun and then cocoon it in a solid ball, okay. But they layer it so that the heat can dissipate and not burn anything out or melt it for that matter. But when you start taking a look at it, a Dyson sphere is simply a sphere that goes all the way around the star, okay, and then you build on the inside of it. Well, there we go. Oh, okay. Oh, hey, Robert, I'm going to pop a bubble for you. It came before that. Don't get me wrong. Robert saying Dyson Sphere written by Charles Pellegrino and George Dombrowski. Published by Pocketbooks. It was first released in 1999. I first heard about the Dyson Sphere through my brother, who read about it with a science fiction writer back in the 60s. Now, who it was, I don't know. Okay, what I do know is I learned about it way back then, which means I'm not debating that this, but maybe that's the name of the story. Maybe Dyson Sphere is the name of the book that they wrote, but the actual concept I knew about when I was a child. Okay, and that I learned about, like I said, from my brother who read it. Okay, he didn't write it; he read the thing. But I do appreciate the added information there, Robert. Now, when we look at all that's going on, there are so many ways. There are so many ways that people can hurt each other, that people can damage things. The thing is, there are far more ways where beauty can be established, can be displayed. And this is what we've got to turn our attention back to. I mean, when you take a look at what we were just talking about, the Dyson Sphere, phenomenal architectural work of art. Absolutely phenomenal. Okay. But you can either use it to build a massive civilization, or you can take the same concept and make a weapon. Which one's going to hold your attention more? There we are. We're missing part of that.
It's in two separate sections.
Oh,
inspired by the 1937 science fiction novel Star Maker by Olaf Stapledon, the physicist and mathematician Freeman Dyson was first to formalize the concept of what would become known as the Dyson Sphere in his 1960 science paper, Search for Artificial Stellar Sources of Infrared Radiation.
That's why I missed it. Okay. I needless to say, I'm not the most observant person, which begs the question, how I've driven an actual car, okay, for over 40 years and been in very few accidents. It's been well over 25 since I've been in one. And yet I miss things as blatant as that. It's amazing to me, but thank you very much for that there, Storm. The neat part about it, when you take a look at this, okay, one of the most fascinating things I've come across is literally the art of mathematics. Okay, again, and that's another race. And I will tell you, the people that have that one down to a fine art are the Xeron. Okay, they are the ones that have the whole issue of mathematics down to an art form. Even when they're doing their formula calculations, they concern themselves with the way it lines up, which brings us back to that other thing I was mentioning. There is a neat little piece of information about the configuration of the pyramids. All the hieroglyphs inside the pyramids, okay, are designed as energy conduits. Okay, they are in essence a circuit board. Okay, and it's that circuit board, not only the board, it's not only the inside of an individual pyramid, but when you compare them to the accompanying pyramids, not only are we talking about the ones that are sitting right close by, but we are talking about the alignment of the pyramids on the other side of the planet. Okay, you're looking at a network of information. Valerie, welcome on board, by the way. Valerie's asking, do humans have alien race souls or just human unevolved souls? Absolutely no to both. The soul is the driver itself. The alien race or the human are literally the vehicle. Okay. And the soul itself is a whole different ballgame. That's the driver of any of the vehicles. This is why some people will tell you, oh, I'm an alien, because they remember their alien life better than they remember the human one. Okay, but the soul itself is simply the driver. It is not a human soul or an alien one. Christine, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Okay, and what happens is when the vehicle dies, whether it's human or alien, animal or vegetable, corporeal or incorporeal, doesn't matter. When the vehicle passes, that soul everybody goes to the same place. And that's where your next step is. Okay. Oh, that's not a problem there at all, Valerie. I'm glad to have your input. The reality is you've asked a question that I cannot tell you how many people I know wonder about that question, but never get around to asking. But the soul itself, everybody goes to the same place. It's in there you make the connections with the other souls and go, okay, I'm coming back as this race, or I'm coming back in this kind of a lifestyle. Not always on Earth. Okay. And because time is an interesting setup, okay, people don't register it the same way, soul-wise, to different corporeal form. Okay, but some people will tell you they are not human. All you got to do there, don't worry about the physical configuration. Look at this one. Number one, do they require human food to survive? Do their emotions react in a generally human configuration? Okay. Do they require oxygen to breathe? Okay. If they do, they're in a human body in all likelihood. Now, you also have to look at whether or not their body reacts in a medically conducive form. Okay. Now, do understand any one thing on its own does not necessarily mean much. Okay. But when you look at if your body requires the above, okay, and especially if human medication generally works properly for you, hate to tell you this, but you're in a human body. Whether you remember your past life in another body better or not is another issue. Valerie goes, I'm not coming back as one of those human-eating beings. Valerie, just a twisted tongue-in-cheek side note. Some humans still eat humans. Yeah, it's really frowned upon in polite society. But there are still cannibals on Earth. Okay, and there's been some pretty famous ones. There was one really famous one that I saw back and I heard about that was in the States not too long ago. Gordon, how you doing? Glad you could join us. The reality is there is so much we can look at in the world and go, it's absolutely horrendous and the world's going to end, etc., etc. or we can start looking at the creative side, at the positive side of what's going on. Okay. And personally, I agree with you, Valerie. I'd love to say that, that I have a major problem with it, but I come from a very different, don't get me wrong. This lifetime, I am definitively, for me personally, I'm absolutely against eating people. Just not going to happen. How you doing, Ken? From my standpoint, it's simple. I learned from a lot of different races to look at people as, okay, you're a human. Okay. But when you're dead, the body's going to be consumed by somebody. Now, do not get me wrong. I do not condone cannibalism. Okay. If it happens to be the way your lifestyle is, well, that's the way you're going to have to work with it. But there's a lot of practices I've seen people do that I just do essentially what you did there, Valerie, and go, ew. Okay. I find it appalling the way some parents treat their kids or that some partners treat their partner. I find it absolutely mind-blowing. But we can look at the negative side, or we could take a look at what I saw the other day. Okay. And that was I was watching YouTube, and I saw these people all sitting out on the lawn chairs. It was pouring rain. And they didn't have a sign out saying, don't do this. Okay. What they did was they sat on their lawn chairs in front of a puddle. They had a great big sign made up that went, that literally said, please splash us. The reason being, I'm guessing it was really hot out. Okay. But it was one of these things, it's raining. We're not going to complain about getting splashed. They sat out there with their beer and their lawn chairs, and they waited for people to drive through the puddle. Talk about making the most of the weather. Or you can sit there and look at it going, oh, it's miserable weather. It's pouring rain. It's dry. It's drab. It's ugly. There are always ways of looking at something, and I don't use always very often. Okay. See, I got a buddy that looks at the whole idea of being vegetarian or vegan, and goes, "I'm a second generation vegan." I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I'm a second generation vegetarian." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "I let the cows eat the grass, and I eat the cow." Now I'm looking at this going, it works for me because I hate to tell you this, guys, but I'm a carnivore. Actually, I really don't hate to tell you that. But that's the other thing you got to look at. Now, I wonder if I've got the race. I do have the race. I have to get back to it. Oh. Preacher's going, people taste like pork. That's why Pacific Island cannibals call it long pig. I've heard the term before, I just didn't know who was doing it. There is a race, and I've already listed, I haven't listed it today. There is a race that is out there. What the heck are they? I can't recall offhand. So I'm going to have to put a pin in that idea. Put that there. I've got to go back through the Ildebakian Chronicles and thank you very much, LA, and take a look. There's a race that their entire claim to fame is food. Okay. Yeah, I'm wondering if I can get that. I don't know if I can. That might take too much time. Where are we? That. Might be able to pull it up here. I'm just waiting for a thing, for a, look. There we are. Let's see if he's in here. There we are. I did forget one race. Okay. That is the other creative race. Absolutely against against fighting. And that is the Parake. Okay. The Parake are short little people. Like, they literally are only 3.5 feet tall. Okay. But they live in the wild. They live in amongst the root systems. Okay. But they're absolutely against conflict. However, their claim to fame where it comes to the creative side. And no, I do not have a picture of Rocky for you. Okay. That's one of those ones I'm going to have that's going to end up in book 2, in volume 2. What do we got here? Preacher's just gone. There was a Dr. Villain during Tom Baker era who was scouring the universe, eating everyone he met, looking for the best tasting aliens. Yeah, we're not going to go down that road today. Because it depends on personal choice, really. Yeah, LA goes, bet his face was on a wanted poster downtown. I will tell you this. There are races that are just twisted in their diets. But when you look at the Parake, they will find anything to turn around and add flavor to their food. They are the ultimate in connoisseur. Whether it is food, wine, they're not much in the way of beer drinkers. Okay. But they do like beer. Some of them like beer. Okay. But they are into the food, the wine, the fine dining. They're not much into all the flowery side of decor. Okay. Like, it's not like walking into a Venusian hall. Okay. Or, for that matter, an Orion hall. The Parake are literally, they will run from a fight. Let's face it, the guys are 3 feet tall. It's not like they're going to run far. But they're pretty quick when you think about it. Okay. And yes, there are other races. The Parake and the Ituarai both are interacting with each other. There's a few other races that fit those bills that are being included. Like, they're being added to the repertoire that I've got. But when we look at the world, you've got a choice. We've all got a choice. We can look at and perpetuate the spreading of ugliness, the spreading of fear, the spreading of war. Okay. Yeah, LA goes, so will I, but I'm used to being the smallest kid in class. When I was growing up, I didn't run. Of course, I swear to Lord, I swear to God, I was missing something. Because I literally had 2 guys when I was a kid. I literally had 2 of the bullies that were always on me. Come up to me in the ballpark. They says, we're going to beat you up because we don't like the way you look. I looked at them and went, oh. And I physically turned my back and walked off on them. Didn't get hit. I think I stunned them because I should have reacted in some fashion. I didn't. But the Parake are extremely quick-footed. Okay. But they are the ones that concentrate on the food, on proper smoke. And I do not mean getting high. I mean, they find different things that have an aromatic flavor. Okay. Not something to alter their mind. Humans seem to have been the ones that really went out of their way to find a way to alter the mindset. Okay. The thing with the Korbor is, they drink constantly. Absolutely they do. But the problem is they're kind of like Johnny Fever back in WKRP in Cincinnati days. Okay. The more they drink, the more accurate they get. Not necessarily a good thing if you're going into a fight against them. So we do have a staggering amount of people that are very, what is this? We got a staggering number of races, but the majority are actually decent people. They are not warmongers. They're just very capable at it if pushed. Okay. The Gaddafi are really dangerous in a war. And yes, they fight constantly, but most of their fighting is for physical exercise. This is why they use, for them, their art form is combat. Mind you, and this is the wrong name. Okay, but it's the only one I've got for the moment. I've lost it somewhere in the pages. And that's the Amazons. They are another race that they look at physical prowess as an art form. Okay, it can be used for combat, but that's not what it was designed for. All in all, as you can see, there are really beautiful, really bright sides to the world. Okay, it's your choice whether you're going to, it's your choice whether you're going to concentrate on the bad things that go on the ugliness in the world, on the ugliness in people, or are you going to concentrate on the positive sides? Okay, that's the thing you have to really focus on. But it's up to you whether you're going to do that. Okay, I'm just telling you, this is why, with positive perspectives, this is why we are concentrating on primarily the positive side of it. There's a lot of ways to get depressed out there. A lot of things you can do to hurt yourself, hurt others, hurt your outlook on life. A lot of them. But there are actually more ways to enjoy it. Now, I was talking to somebody the other day, and I can tell you there is an absolute metabolic genetic reason that explains why people like certain appearances, people like certain looks. Okay, some of it is animal in nature, some of it is simply pleasure, but it all has a logical genetic explanation. Okay, the only thing you've got to really focus on at this point, or I suggest you do, is focus on what makes you feel better. And that doesn't mean, oh, I feel better because I'm beating on somebody. Remember, karmic law. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Energy out, energy in. If you're considering beating on other people is going to make you feel better, flip that around in your head for a moment and think of how you're going to feel if somebody bigger than you or smaller than you comes and beats the living heck out of you. Is this going to make you feel better? Now, of course, we can go back to that 70s statement where, sticks and stones may break my bones, but whips and chains excite me. Okay, it's twisted, I agree. Ultimately, in a nutshell, Valerie, and I'm probably going to, we won't have time to go into the whole thing, but it literally has to do with the subquantum interaction of different cells in your body. Not the least of which is your what is it called? I don't even know what the brain center is called, Bart, but your pleasure center, we'll call it that. It's the link between taste buds, tactile, auditory, and the pleasure center. That is what makes you decide, oh, I like that, or I'm drawn to that feeling or that taste or that person. It is literally designed in the subquantum genetics and amplified by the neural net. Okay. And yes, by the way, you can reprogram that same setup so that you can start liking something you don't like. It takes a little bit of work, but I will tell you, I'm not going out of my way to figure out how to like grits, or I was going to say Pablo won't do that either, or cream of wheat. It just doesn't matter enough to me to bother putting the effort into it. But that in a nutshell. Gordana, the answer is yes. Okay, it's an intriguing question. But yeah, it doesn't stop just because the physical body does. Okay, you find every race has their own way of doing it. And before I answer that any further on this stream, okay, there are some boundaries I've been told are dangerous. Okay, now the tall whites, Valerie, are your Aldebarans. And I think they're in book 2. I don't think I've got the Aldebarans in here, or maybe I do. It's sometimes really fun trying to remember which ones I got where. No, the Aldebarans are actually going to be in volume 2. Well, they're already in it. Okay, now, a lot of your draw to the tall whites, okay, is literally because you likely had a lifetime with them. And I'm just saying it's likely that way. You probably had a lifetime either as one or connected with them. Okay, now, I know we got started late today. This is why I'm still running. Okay, but it boils down, because you got to remember, when we're talking about the neural net, that does not rely on just humans. That relies on all connectivity. Where do we go here? Preacher goes, I want to go back to my Minoan lifetime. Yeah, I mean, I'm presuming you'd like to go back to it without actually going back to the wall of water. Because I'll tell you, that was a rush. Not necessarily a good one, but it was a rush. Oh, okay. Ellie's just looking up the terms of service side. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you so much for keeping me on top of the time there, Ellie. And again, sorry for showing up late, but things happen like that on occasion. Anyway, first and foremost, I do want to say thank you so very much, people, for sharing your time with us today. Really appreciate it. Great questions that came in. I am going to be back again tomorrow. Now, tomorrow, we're still looking at the whole issue. We're going to be looking at the alien side of it. But tomorrow, we're going to look at literally fear-mongering and misinformation. Okay. Now, some of you are probably going to get upset about this, but we're going to cover that tomorrow. And then we'll look at the creative side of things a little more on Tuesday. But sticking with the different races. That said, I will be back again tomorrow, 4:30 PST until 6:30 PST. Until then, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.